Good evening. This is BelGeode, and we are back with some more Microsoft Flight Simulator. And yes, this is the episode that you were waiting for. Finally. So, in my quest, shall we say, to have a hashtag cat in every sim, I am pleased to announce that the DC Designs F-14 Alpha and Bravo models are almost ready for prime time. So the release date is scheduled for August the 19th. Hopefully, I will have gotten this video out prior to that, so that way it'll be a preview video rather than a review video. However, that having been said, first off, there's a few things that I need to get off my chest. First and foremost, huge, massive thank yous to DC Designs for the preview copy of the Tomcat and, of course, the subsequent updates that we've been getting. They've been paying attention to feedback and making changes where necessary. This close to the finish line, though, they've got to stop somewhere. So, what I intend to do with this video, aside from showing you, the viewer, just what the Tomcat is all about, it also is intended to be sort of a feedback video for DC Design. So hopefully they will watch it and take to heart some of the things that I say. Secondly, this is not DCS. Yes, I know that should go without saying, and there's been an awful lot of chit chat about it online, in particular Facebook and some of the forums and whatnot. Listen, if you know me and you know this channel, you know that I absolutely love the Heat Blur Simulations F-14 Tomcat. It is my favorite bird to fly in DCS world. Can't get enough of it. Way behind on videos though. This is Microsoft Flight Simulator, and going back to my original thing, hashtag cat for every sim, I welcome DC Designs and this Tomcat for this sim, because I don't always want to do combat missions. Sometimes I want to practice things. Sometimes I just want to fly from point A to point B, whether point A and point B happen to be military installations, or maybe, just maybe, it might be part of the Tomcattery Across the USA series, which those of you who are really long-time viewers, no doubt you remember that FSX series. I know I've promised you all that I would complete it. I intend to keep that promise. Hopefully this is the aircraft that is going to do it. And Allie will be back with me in the cockpit. But not tonight, though. Tonight, I am playing the part of both pilot and Rio. All right, there's other stuff that I need to tell you, but we'll wait until we get into the bird because these intros always get long. So first and foremost, let's show you the Tomcat itself. So there it is in the lineup. You have the A model and you also have the B model. That's it. There is no D model in this particular package. However, with that having been said, you do get a fair amount of liveries. Now, I'm not going to show you the A model tonight. I'm specifically sticking with the B because it is the one that I prefer. But you get 3 liveries here with the B, and you also get 3 liveries with the A. So we've got the 143rd Fighter Squadron, aka the Puking Dogs, my absolute favorite squadron when it comes to Tomcats. It's the first one that I saw in person, real life, way back when. We're talking like 1986 here. And it is the one that has stuck with me the most. I would say probably Jolly Rogers would be the second, but you can find a Jolly Rogers skin under the Alpha model. We also have the 32nd and the 213, both of which should be familiar to you, as they were some of the last Tomcat squadrons to be disestablished. Now, a lot of the Tomcat squadrons ended up becoming FA-18 Super Hornet squadrons or Rhino squadrons. So the names may still live on, the colors may still live on, but sadly, the cat has been put to rest. The only person in the world who's flying them now are the Iranians. Weight and balance. We're not going to do anything special, and I have a perfectly good reason for that. Weapons, I don't feel the need to show you weapons. You already know this is Microsoft Flight Simulator. Weapons are really not a thing. Yes, you will see the models of the AIM 7s or the AIM 54s or the AIM 9s. Yes, you will also see the drop tanks. But none of that does anything. Except, of course, for the drop tanks. That'll give you extra gas. So there's no need for me to change any of these settings right here. We're just going to leave everything at 50, and it kind of ties into one of the things that I want to show you. Our call sign for today is going to be dog100. You can see the little 100 underneath the nose there. That's our board number. And for our weather, I've taken it upon myself to set up custom weather this time around, because real life where we're going is a little stormy right now, and I really don't feel like going through that right now. Didn't sign up for any Cat 3s. All right, so you'll recall Hawaii in our last 4 videos. We're going to be going a little bit west. You might say we're going midway to the continent of Asia. That's exactly where we're going. So, Papa Mike Delta Yankee, Midway Island, aka Henderson Field. This is where we are going to be testing out the Great Cat today. So the history behind Midway, it of course was one of the battle sites from World War II, one of the very important battle sites that began to tip the tide from the Japanese conquest of the Pacific to the American, I guess, conquest, taking it all back, so to speak. Yeah, we'll just go with that. You know that the US won World War II. This is where the tide started turning for Japan, is here in Midway. There is still an airbase there. I don't know how busy it is these days, but there's not a whole heck of a lot on this island right now. So it is what it is. So we're going to be using this as our test area. And incidentally, this is the same island that I use as my test area inside of X-Plane 11. So I felt it was kind of appropriate. I wanted to show you Key West Naval Air Station, but I figure I've already shown that to you when we did India Fox Techo's T-45. So we'll forego it this time around. We're not going to do anything too special, except, of course, shenanigans. So we're going to take off probably to the east, according to that wind there. And we're going to do some shenanigans. We're going to fly over to a smaller island over here called Sand Island. We'll attempt to do a touch and go. And I say attempt because, yeah, this is a Tomcat. That's a short runway. We don't have cables stretching across that runway. You see where I'm going with this. And with that having been said, we are going to be coming back to Midway and then we'll land. Along the way, I intend to show you some of the stuff that the Tomcat can do aerodynamically. But even though this is my absolute favorite aircraft of all time, do not expect this to be a gushing review. There are some things that I think DC Designs needs to work on. So even though I love the heck out of it, I am going to be very critical of it. So if you're not into that, you may want to just tune away from now. But I will try to show you the best as well as some of the areas of opportunity. With that having been said, let's hop into the Tomcattery and commence some Tomcattery. All right, so there she is, the majestic beast that is the F-14 Tomcat Bravo model. I trust my plane is ready to go, right? Okay, take that as a yes. So, this is the Tomcat, and I can't help but grin from ear to ear seeing her finally in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Granted, she's not perfect. I mean, considering the price for this particular bird, which should be showing up in the comments right now, or the little pop-up commentary, it's not study level. And I really abhor that term, study level, but it's not. And it is not designed to be study level. So you can see the textures, they do look decent, but obviously, the lines are painted on and so on and so forth. But they do pay attention to a lot of various details. For example, you've got the inlet ramps there for the intakes. We've got our intake covers there. Drop tanks look faithfully reproduced, as well as the rails for the missiles. We've even got some chocks on the gear, and the gear does compress, by the way, both the front and the back gear. And then as we work our way around the back, you can see the lovely wings, the swing wings, which is pretty much the Tomcat's trademark there. Lights are painted on, unfortunately, but what can we do? One thing the developer is aware of, if you look at this BUNO or Bureau number, and you'll notice on top of it, it says F-14A. Well, the livery itself might be an F-14A livery because it definitely looks like 1980s vintage Puking Dogs livery. However, if you look at the engines, you will see that we are not in an F-14A, but rather in a Bravo model. They did get the engines right, however. So, yeah, you can look at them big old turkey feathers. I remember being amazed at just how massive this thing was in real life, and it's just as massive here in the sim, whether the sim be DCS or MSFS. Still waiting for X-Plane to catch up, by the way. All right, so we continue going around. I think they did a pretty decent job on the textures considering, what they had to work with. So I'm not going to judge them too harshly because how many of you watching this are actually going to do what I'm doing right now, do a virtual walk around in VR? It's fun to do. I would definitely recommend doing it just to kind of get an idea of scale. If you have like an Xbox controller, or if you're like me and you set your controls for the camera to be the same as your joystick, you can actually walk around the aircraft, set yourself at human height, just a little bit taller than the Asobo people, who are roughly around 5'5" or 5'7", and you can walk around and get a pretty good approximation as to how big the Tomcat really was. And it was. It was a massive fighter. Just to kind of put it in perspective, you see those drooping elevators there, the elevons. One of those is exactly the same size as the wing of an A4 Skyhawk or scooter. So that should give you an idea what we're talking about here when we're talking about size. And as massive as this thing was, when it got fitted with the GE engines that the B model has, it became pretty formidable as far as a dogfighter goes because it actually had the power at that point in time to take on bigger or smaller birds. It's gone up against F-15s and F-16s, and I think also F-18s, like the earlier models, the Charlie models. But yeah, pretty awesome stuff. Now, the A model that you get, they did faithfully reproduce the idiosyncrasies with that engine that's in there, the Pratt& and Whitney engine. You can have compressor stalls. I would highly recommend you look up VR Flight Sim Pilot, aka Steve. Go check out his channel. He's got an excellent overview of what it's like to have a compressor stall. And let me just tell you, if you've never done it before in DCS, it's scary. When your engine starts going bang, bang, that's not pretty. Not pretty at all. All right, but we've waffled on enough here. Let's hop inside the bird. We'll go ahead and get her started as close to by the books as I possibly can, and then we'll go for a little fly before the sun sets. All right, so we are in the office of the big cat, and first thing I've got to say is I have a bone to pick with Asobo Studios. You may notice my tarmac looks a little weird. What are those geometric patterns on there? Ever since Sim Update 5, and it's been exacerbated by the subsequent hotfixes, I'm getting this weird issue where textures seem to be getting randomly swapped out for pieces of textures. It's really annoying. I have yet to find a way to fix it. It affects both VR and 2D. I'm hoping that whatever they're planning for World Update 6, which is coming near the end of August and will also update Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, I'm hoping they will also include something to fix this rubbish right here. Because it really gets bad. You'll see once we're flying, once it starts swapping out terrain tiles and so on. It kind of reminds me of the old FSX bug with Orbix, where you had to force lookup migration tables. It's like that, except I don't have anything like that here in MSFS to, work with that. All right, but let's go ahead and get the bird started up here. So this is what it looks like cold and dark. Your canopy will be closed, so I've taken the liberty of opening the canopy. And you may also notice on our seat, I have the cameras pop up under there. I'm going to explain why I have that there in a moment. But first, let's go ahead and get our battery on. So the battery switch they've actually put on the controls right there. So you'll see it there. And we also have a GPU for this. So if I click on this little switch here, hear that sound? Voila! All of a sudden, we've got a nifty little GPU and air cart, because the way that the Tomcat worked, it never had internal batteries. In order to get this thing started, you had to have it connected to a cart. So you could use the air as bleed air, and of course that will help start the engine. So we need that. Now, the other things that are down here, this is for the visor and this is for the mask. These are for both the pilot and the Rio. So it basically allows you to show them or not show them. This switch that's already up, these are the chains. If we were on a carrier tied down, we would have chains on this aircraft. So this switch will make those appear or not. Middle switch is for the covers. You saw the pedo covers and so on and so forth. And then, of course, our chocks are on this switch. So we need to make sure both of those are pressed. Okay, now on this side, we have the wings. Now, the way that they did the wing sweep, not 100% sold on. Typically, your wing sweep is supposed to start with the cover open and this manual sweep all the way back, which you'll notice it says engine anti-ice. They had to do that in order to give you a keybind or a control that you can use to activate the wing sweep manually. So kind of weird, but it is what it is. You'll notice our wings are slicked back in the oversweep position, which is 68 degrees, as it says right there on the nifty little thingy. And let's see, we are going to need fuel, however. Now, the other thing that they've done, these fuel cutoff levers default to off. You need to make sure these are pushed in, both of them. Otherwise, you will not be able to start either engine. Very important that you do that. So in your typical Tomcat start, the first thing we would do, the Rio and the pilot would be doing their ICS comms checks. And then, of course, they would arm the ejection seat, which we can't even see the ejection arming mechanism up there. And, of course, they would close the canopy. I'm going to leave the canopy open for this start, but we are pretty much ready to start. So I'm going to split my Virpil throttles. And we're going to start with the left engine. Now, the engine start switch is supposed to be a single switch that's three-way, left to right. However, DC Designs has chosen to model two switches, which is fine. So we'll flip that one on first. We're going to be watching these gauges here, and the biggest issue that I have with this aircraft are these three gauges. So the RPM gauge on the left, we're supposed to wait until that gets up to 20, and then we put the left throttle from idle cutoff to idle. However, once it starts up, I want you to take a special note as to where this thing idles as far as percentage goes. These numbers are all off. Every last one of them. So that's something that I really need for DC Designs to take a look at if you're looking to model the Tomcat. All right, so throttle's in idle. Engine 1 is coming up now. And once it reaches the top, we should be good to go. You can see our oil is going up. Our nozzle will open and close during the process. This is for the hydraulics. It's not modeled at all. It's just a picture of it. Typically, the hydraulics, the needle should start at the 6 o'clock position, and then if the left engine's coming on, the needle should go to the right to the 3 o'clock position. Right engine should go to the left, 9 o'clock position. Doesn't do that. That, what you just heard, is another thing. The F-15 does that as well. Not sure what that is, but DC Designs, please find that and do something about that. That's not supposed to happen. The engine started, it's just not supposed to start that violently. All right, let's get the right engine up. So once again, we're going to wait until it reaches 20. When it reaches 20, we're going to put the right throttle into the idle position. And it'll take a little while to get there. It actually does take this long for the Tomcat to start up. And we're basically just started. We're not even counting what the Rio would have to do. All right, let's get our throttle to idle, and I'm going to connect the two throttles together while we wait for engine 2 to come up. So around this point in time, we would also be telling our ground crew, so there's our ground crew right there, we'll be telling her that she can get rid of the GPU, which looks like she already did. Wow, she is on top of things. We'll just turn off the switch. We can also close our canopy, so let's get our ladder retracted. Close the canopy. And lock it, of course. There we go. Canopy is now locked. Good deal. Good deal. All right, so both engines are coming online. And now that that has taken place, we're going to get our AFCS, our SAS channels on, so pitch, roll, and yaw. There is an issue with these. Right now, these switches are in on position. And you will notice on our caution and warning panels that they are not showing. However, they will show eventually. I need to also get the inlet ramps open. Those should already be on auto. I'm not sure why they default to off, but you'll notice that they're gone now. So there we go. Now, the problem that I have with the SAS channels is right now they're on. Eventually, those caution and warning lights are going to come on and tell me that they're off. We already know that they're on. All right, let's get our avionics up. So this is our avionics master switch. And we can set our HUD to takeoff mode. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the avionics because this is probably the biggest departure from what the actual Tomcat was like. So let's start with the HUD. First of all, huge kudos to DC Designs for solving the issue that we were having with HUDs in fighter jets. You can now see it perfectly in TAA anti-aliasing mode, so very good job. Thank you very much. However, this is not a Tomcat B model HUD or an A model HUD. This looks more like a Tomcat D model HUD. The reason why I say that is the Tomcat was notorious for having early model HUDs, which means there is not even remotely close to the same amount of information showing on this HUD. But DC Designs did think of that, and they gave us a declutter switch. Now that looks more like the Tomcat HUD, except of course it wouldn't have AFCS Eng and THR at the bottom. But that looks more like it. That's what the HUD is supposed to look like in this aircraft. Let's go a little bit lower to the VDI. Now the VDI is one of those quote-unquote trademark instruments that's in the Tomcat. This, again, looks more like a D model rather than a B or an A. There's a very distinctive look to the B and the A, which you can see in the DCS heat blur, and I'm going to try not to make too many comparisons to the heat blur version. But needless to say, they did get it right. This is not correct. However, I am okay with it. The reason why I'm okay with it is because it does give me a lot of information that is very useful, that does come in handy. So I can live with that. You don't need to change that. And then as we go further down, the HSI, well, this HSI tends to have a lot more information than you would find on a regular Tomcat A or B model HSI. But again, It's one of those things that I can live with because it's useful for navigation. And it's especially useful in the back seat, in the real seat, which we're going to take a look at in a moment. But before I go there, I do want to switch the format that we actually have this thing on. So you'll notice that we now switched it from a compass rose to an arch. All right. While we're waiting for everything to come up, which it should already be, let's go to the Rio cockpit really quick here, and we will take a look at what you got in the back seat. Okay, so now we are in the Rio seat, and they did a pretty decent job on this back seat here to make it look exactly like it should. There are, of course, some creative liberties taken, but overall, the switches are all in the right spot. Now, please note, the switches are basically for show because of the fact that there's very limited coding that can be added to this right now in Microsoft Flight Simulator. A lot of these switches don't do anything, but they do work. So we'll give them that. So this is the Rio's bread and butter here, these two screens that we're looking at. This is the main radar screen, which honestly, what's on there right now looks absolutely nothing like what's supposed to be on there. But for the purposes of Microsoft Flight Simulator, since we're not going to be shooting down any bandits or anything like that, we really don't need an AWG radar that can track 24 targets or any of that kind of stuff. What we really need is navigation. So let's say, for example, that we're doing, a shared cockpit or something like that. Well, if you have a backseater, a Rio, they can actually do your navigation for you. And that is one of the reasons why I am okay with this. So we can even change the range on this here. So if we zoom out, you'll see 10, 20, 40 miles, 80 miles. So yeah, it's all in there. It is all in there. And it looks pretty good. Definitely looks good. We're going to keep it at about 10. Now, one complaint that I do have in the back seat here, you'll notice these are doing the same thing. That's not accurate. What this screen should be is basically mimicking what's going on in the HUD or even the VDI up in the pilot's cockpit so that the Rio has an idea of what the orientation of the aircraft is. That's what should be on that screen. So that may be something you might want to swap out last minute there, DC Designs, if you can. That would be great. This, however, our pulse Doppler radar, they did a really good job on it. Doesn't work. You can't see any traffic or anything with it, but the color and everything, all the knobs, that's what it looks like. So I'll give them points for that. All right. So now that we have pretty much everything set up here in the Rio cockpit, and we really didn't do anything, we're going to hop back to the front seat, and we'll get our wings unfurled, and we'll go flying before the sun sets. Oh, one thing I do want to mention really quick, DC Designs. Your altimeter in the back here doesn't show anything. So the white drum will move, the needle will move. Both of these two black drums still say 0, 0. So please take a look at that. It is not currently mimicking what the pilot sees. All right, back to the front we go. All right, so we are back up front, and let's see. This is the thing that I wanted to show you. So you will notice that it says our SAS channels are off. Make note, the SAS channels are not off. They are on. So yeah, that is a bug. Let's go ahead and unfurl our wings. So to do so, we need to put the quote-unquote anti-ice engine switch, which is the manual wing sweep lever, to the front and close that. Now, typically in a Tomcat, there should be a reset button here that you push, and then it will allow you, using the controls on the side of the throttle, to set this thing to auto. But for simplicity's sake, they've taken all of that out. So you can see the wings are already where they need to be. Now, getting past this truck is going to be an interesting issue, so I'm thinking we're probably going to want to back up here. Let me just check our flaps really quick. So we've got flaps 1, flaps 2, and flaps 3. Now, technically that's incorrect. There's no flaps 1, 2, and 3 with this, but I'm okay with it as long as I remember to use flaps 2 for takeoff. Now for flaps 3, or the landing flaps, we will also have the DLC that we can use. And I'll go over the DLC a little bit later, but suffice to say it's one of the most important portions of the flight system, of the control surfaces that we will need in this Tomcat. Incidentally, there is no RWR, so you will notice there's a transponder there saying 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's all I'll say about that. All right, and of course our weapons panel here doesn't do anything. However, if you do have missiles on the wings, those little boxes underneath the numbers that indicate the pylon stations will light up. They will light up white. So keep that in mind if you want to role play that you're carrying missiles. All right, let us contact the tower. Oh wait, no, there is no tower. All right, let's get our weather then.
Delta Yankee automated weather observation 0500 Zulu.
It's a beautiful evening.
056 at 17. Visibility 6. Sky condition 1,100 feet scattered, 4,800 feet scattered. Temperature 15C dew point, 13C altimeter 29902.
Okay, 29902 it is. Set up traffic. You, my friend, need to keep quiet while I select a runway for takeoff. We're going to go with 6.
Papa Mike Delta Yankee Traffic Dog 100 is taxiing to runway 6.
All right. Now, lady, since I don't feel like you're going to move this truck, and I also don't feel like hitting my wing on you, I am going to back up. So let's go ahead and get the parking brakes off, and we'll immediately hit the pushback. Now, this thing does have nose wheel steering, and by default, it is off. However, it is on in Microsoft Flight Simulator. There should be a little yellow light there on the inner advisory panel there that says nose wheel steering. You guys forgot that. All right, right about here should be good. I think we can make a UE from here. There we go. All right, so we're just about ready to fly. We should put some lights on. So what I'll do first of all is I'll get our panel lights on. And of course, MSFS likes to stutter whenever I turn any lights on. So we'll get that on. We'll get that on. And we'll get our nav lights on. And of course, there we go again with the stuttering. Strobe lights. All right, good to go. Landing lights as well. Now, we really should set our air to both. However, not modeled. Same thing with oxygen. Oxygen is not modeled in this. All right, but other than that, everything does appear to be good. So let's go ahead and move out. Now, remember what I was saying earlier regarding the RPM, TIT, and fuel flow. Those are way off because it's saying right now our RPM is 100%. We are at idle. DC designed for future reference. Idle should be anywhere between 65 and 75% RPM, typically around 70% RPM. TIT is also way high. It's saying that we are at 110 Celsius. That's not accurate. Considerably less than that. Should be about 4. Well, the meter doesn't even go as far down as 4, but it should be around that range. And then our fuel flow, pounds per hour times 1,000, we should be idling at about 1,000 pounds per hour fuel flow. According to this, we're idling at about 4,000. That's takeoff speed right there. Yeah. So that is something you are definitely going to want to take a look at because typically Tomcat pilots use the fuel flow in order to figure out their power and whatnot. All right, parking brakes off. We're going to make a right turn here. Now, obviously, here at PMDY or Midway, it's going to take us a little while to go all the way down to runway 6 and then turn around and get ourselves lined up. So, as always, I will spare you that, considering the fact that I am taking an exceptionally long time to discuss a lot of the things that I'm finding with this aircraft. As I stated at the beginning of this video, yes, I do love this bird, but I am hypercritical of it because I want it to be the best it possibly can. All right, now that I got that out of my system, let's go to the outside view and we'll pick it up once we reach runway 6. All right, now you can see what I was talking about with the textures. This is just horrible. Asobo, why? Why? I don't understand. I have changed GPU drivers to see if maybe it was the GPU driver that I was having an issue with, but sure enough, doesn't matter what driver I have, it still gives me this for the textures. This is horrible. And you can also notice the little glimmering lines there. That's the seams of the textures there. What is going on here? This needs to be fixed sooner rather than later. All right, but we are at runway 6. I just trimmed us up. That's another thing that I do need to call out. Your trim indicator is right here. It should tell you at all times what your elevators, your rudders, your ailerons, all of that good stuff is doing, your spoilers. It doesn't. And that's something that I kind of need. Without that, I really don't know for sure, what I've got my trim set to. So if you can DC designs in a further iteration of this aircraft, please see if you can make that functional somehow. We kind of need that. And the AOA indexer here, or the AOA units, you may want to take a look at that as well. As we'll discover when we're landing, it's a little off. All right, but we're pretty much set to go, and now it looks like the textures have changed yet again to something completely different. I can't even be bothered. Brakes down, throttles up. We're going to go full mill, which according to the RPM gauge says we are at full afterburner. Obviously, that's incorrect. And fuel flow, well, that's just way low. All right, takeoff around 150, so coming up. There we go. Rotate. And we are up. Let's go to the belly cam and get the gear up. Might as well. All right, so we are at 10,000 feet. That's pretty good. You could see some more of those little texture anomalies here because we were inverted. See, now it looks great. Looking at Midway from up here looks wonderful. It's just when we start getting a little lower that the texture starts doing whatever voodoo it's doing to give us textures. Obviously not a very good thing. All right, so we do have a white line, supposed to be a magenta line, but I think it's superimposed because we're basically coming back to where we took off from. But now that we are up and running, I can tell you with all certainty and much happiness that this thing does in fact fly like a Tomcat. We can do a snap roll. Whee! We can do another snap roll. Whee! Of course, I just did an Immelman, so no need to show you that again. And we can definitely go fast. Typically, the Tomcat at an altitude such as this will probably go around Mach 1, 2, or Mach 1.2. Right now, we are at Mach 8 or Mach 0.8. So yeah, if we get up to about 45,000 feet, which this thing tops out at about 60,000 feet, We can, of course, get faster Mach speeds, upwards of Mach 2.5. Well, close to it. I don't think it was ever concretely said how fast the Tomcat can really fly, like flat out, because obviously you'd run out of gas halfway through. But either way, it is a joy to fly, especially in VR. We can do some cloud busting here, and it's just incredible. So I'm going to get up above this cloud level here. Look at that. That's just wonderful. See, this right here is what to me makes it all worthwhile. To be able to fly around the islands of Midway, the storied islands of Midway, in a Tomcat, you just can't do that every day, you know? And this is what I think is really what makes it worth it for me. Being able to do shenanigans like this, going in between the clouds and so on and so forth. So really, this is what it's all about. Although, I'm going to call something else out, and this one is for Asobo. Your clouds are very pixelated. I'm not quite certain what happened between Sim Update 4 and Sim Update 5, but I have these things on Ultra. This is not the same clouds that I had before. So you may want to take a look at that and see what's going on. I've been telling a lot of people that this sim has not been dumbed down for Xbox. In fact, I hate when anybody uses the term dumbed down. I don't believe it has, but I do think something has changed because I've never had those texturing issues before. And as we just saw, the clouds looking as they are now, yeah, something's not right and it needs to be fixed. And Asobo, we need updates for VR. It's about high time. You're going to let an entire year go by before we get any updates on VR. Come on, work with us here. Give us a bone. Do something. That's all I can ask. All right, so how about we go back to the outside view? Let me set up our autopilot really quick here. So we've got master autopilot on. We've got the flight director on, and we're going to get our GPS on. We are at Angels 21 or 21,000 feet. So as soon as we get to 22, I will level us out. And we're closing in right about there. So we're at Angels 22. All right, let's go to the outside and do some of those funky cinematics that I like. And when we come back in, we'll fly from the real seat. All right, so as you can see, we got down from altitude rather quickly here, but as I'm sure you also saw outside, half the island is missing, which is clearly not correct. So we're going to swing our way around here. I'm not sure I can actually land from the real seat, but at least the island's back, so that's a good sign. I'm okay with that. Now, see, the thing with this is I actually need to be in the pilot seat to land because I'm going to need the DLC, which I touched upon earlier. The DLC, those are the direct lift control. Basically, it's little spoilers on the tops of the wings that while they double as ailerons, when you're landing, they actually help to keep the aircraft pointed at the correct attitude so that you can touch down properly. Especially useful on an aircraft carrier. So, since I have us pretty much stable right now, I'm going to switch us back to the pilot seat. Okay, so we are at the pilot seat now. And where's our island? There it is. Okay, so the runway is on the southern side of the island. That's going to be tricky. Now, I'm not going to do a full stop landing on this. That would be suicide. This island is really small. There are no cables running across it, so we can't do a carrier landing here. But we can get our gear down. We'll also get our flaps full. And this is where the DLC comes in. So this little switch right here, which is the only way you can engage it. And if we look out on the wing, you will see those little spoilers that came up. That's the DLC. So that will help us stay at the right attitude. We are a little high though. We're at 6,000 feet. So we're going to need to come down considerably here. So I've put us to idle, and of course we are going to drop like a rock. We're falling at 2,000 feet per minute. I have all confidence that I should be able to pull us out of this. So we're going to start making our turn to final, because the quicker we line up, the better. Now, when you're lining up with this thing, you're supposed to have 15 units of AOA, or angle of attack. You will also see the little AOA indexer. Right now, that should be green, indicating we are too slow. When we're at the right AOA, we're on speed. We should have what they call a yellow donut. We don't have that just yet. And we're still kind of high up. We're at 4,600. So as you can see, we're a little over 150 knots, which is fine for, a nice, gentle descent here. But obviously, we're going to need to work on that really quickly to do our touch and go here. Gear is down, just confirm that again. Unfortunately, on the little flap indicator there, I don't see anything for the speed brakes. I'm going to try and put the speed brakes out. Speed brakes are out, but it still says they're up, which is, of course, not correct. We can tell the speed brakes are out because the other spoilers are now up. So I'm going to close that up because obviously I don't want to completely fall out of the sky. And we're going to go to the outside view. Normally I would go to the landing camera view, but I'm going to forego that this time. We'll just go to the regular outside view and see if we can get this thing on deck. I'm also trimming us up just a little bit because we are a little fast, even though our AOA indexer says that we're slow. Really should be landing less than about 150 miles, or excuse me, not miles, but knots. All right, so we'll keep trimming her up there. Okay, so you'll notice we've got the donut. With the donut in place, we should have 15 units AOA. As you can see, we're way off. Way off. All right, let's go to the outside view really quick. I will try not to talk during the outside view, and we'll try and do a touch and go here really quick. Alright, so a little squeak, and of course the tire smoke, so that was good. Get our DLC up. We'll also get our gear up, as well as our flaps. And we can start trimming ourselves back down, because 15 units of AOA puts us at a very awkward angle after takeoff. But there we go. That was a touch and go. And of course, you notice the runway textures disappeared. That's the stuff I'm talking about, Asobo. We need that fixed, please. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. This thing was doing just fine as far as flight sims go, and now all of a sudden, I'm having issues. I'm usually the last person to have issues with this, so I don't know, Asobo. Gotta redo something here. And incidentally, for those of you who are wondering, the graphics card that I use is the AMD Radeon 7. It has 16 gigs of VRAM on board, plenty for VR. And typically, this particular graphics card does not often have problems with any flight sim, except maybe DCS from time to time, mostly around the Marianas. But that's a whole different ballgame. All right, let's go inverted because Maverick would greatly appreciate it. Gotta say, the cloud was better upside down. This is what I was hoping for. Okay, so we are iced up, folks. We are definitely iced up. Thankfully, the cat does have windshield de-ice. We'll also get our pitot heat on while we're at it here. So in a few moments, everything should start thawing out, and we can start heading to the deck. As you can see, we're getting close to the airspace for Midway, so now would probably be a good time to also hit the deck. So that way we're not trying to put our gear out at 6,000 feet above sea level. But yeah, look at that. Real quick work. Real quick work. All right, so there is Midway directly up ahead, and we're going to do your typical carrier break there. I think we've had enough shenanigans for the day. Overall, I would say this thing flies really well. However, it is not perfect. Like I said, I don't like drawing comparisons, but the only thing that I can really compare it to is, of course, the heat blur Tomcat. Does it fly like the heat blur Tomcat? Not exactly. Not exactly. I'll give you a good example right now. Okay, so as you can see, we're in level flight here. If I give it left rudder, you notice the nose turns, but that's it. We're just turning left. What should happen if I give it left rudder, because this thing has adverse yaw, it should also roll to the right when you give it left rudder. And then vice versa, if I give it right rudder, it should be doing this. It is not. It is just simply turning the nose left or right. So that, I'm not sure if there is a way that DC Designs can actually address that, or if that is an Asobo flight model limitation. But I don't think it'll necessarily hinder you as far as your ability to fly this bird. She still handles really well. And I should also give you the caveat that if you are using the alpha model of the Tomcat, just remember those engines are a heck of a lot weaker than these engines. So you need to watch your power at all times. If you get too low on power, you run into problems. And by the same token, be careful with your angle of attack. You don't want to do crazy stunts like I am doing here with the A model, because that will typically lead to a compressor stall. Compressor stall, bad. Remember Top Gun? He's in a flat spin, headed out to sea. Yeah, that's a compressor stall. Well, that's Hollywood, actually, but they were supposedly modeling what happens when you have an engine flame out due to compressor stall. So keep that in mind. All right, but we are just about ready for our landing, so let me pull the power back again and get the speed brakes out. Just in time for sunset. All right, there we go. What's our altitude? 1800. That's fine. We'll do it like a carrier brake. So we'll come down to about 800, run the distance of the runway, turn around, and then bring her in. All right, so speed brakes in. Now, one other thing that I do want to make note of, the radar altimeter here. So the radar altimeter is supposed to have a knob on there, so that way you can set your low altitude bug, and typically that's set to around 450 feet above ground level. DC Designs, you missed it. It's got to be there. It's got to be there, because that's what Tomcat drivers use when they are coming into the boat. That's what tells them what the correct altitude is that they should be at when they're at the 90 or directly behind the boat. All right, it looks like Midway is currently behaving itself. I'm certain that that'll probably change as soon as we come around and do our 180 here. We're at 1,300 feet right now. We're going to go out extended because I also want to show you the older island. This is where our military base was in World War II. So this is where we would have like some of the Corsairs or Hellcats or stuff like that, Wildcats. Actually, I think it was more Wildcats because it was earlier in the war. I don't think the Corsair was used that often at that point in time. But that's the old base with the runway there. One thing with the Tomcat, it does take a lot of rudder in order to fly her properly, so don't be afraid to get on that right rudder to help yourself come around in turns. That is actually how you do it. All right, so we are now downwind around 240. That's where I want to be. We're below 300, so let's drop our gear. Okay, gear is now down. We're at 250. We'll want to be lower than that in order to drop our flaps. Yeah, right about there is good. So we'll go flaps full. And once again, we need that DLC. DLC is open. There we go. Yeah, DC Designs, I'm not sure what to tell you about the DLC, but that is hella inconvenient when you are in VR to have to take your hand off your HOTAS in order to flip that switch. I really wish you could find a way to make that either automatically attached to the flap's landing position or put it somewhere else, I guess. I don't know. Really don't know what to say about it. Okay, but I do know that we are getting ready to land. We are a little high. We should be at 800 feet. We're at 1300 right now. Check my altimeter. Okay, altimeter seems to be fine. All right, let's tell them we're coming in. Nearest airport list, Henderson Field. Select runway. We want 6. Full stop landing. And announce on final.
Papa Mike Delta Yankee Traffic Dog 100 is on final runway 6 to land.
Okay, now we're looking good. So you can already start to hear the airflow being a little bit disrupted as it goes over the control surfaces. That's actually true to life. I don't want to get too fast because, of course, we're going to start ballooning up in the air again. So we're going to bring her down. We're at 600 feet. Looking good, looking good. Quickly go to the outside view to line up. And as always, remember your rudder. Rudder is a lifesaver in this aircraft. All right, we're still a little bit fast. So I'm going to slow us down considerably here. We are trimmed up relatively correctly. So there we go. We've got the donut now. Let's make sure that we go over the top here. There we go. All right, so that should do it. We'll bring her in. We're at about 300 feet per minute, so looking good. Little bit of power. And we're down. Oh, now we're down. We actually bounced. Whoops, my bad. All the same, though, that's one of my better Tomcat landings. You should see what I do on the boat. All right, so we'll go ahead and slow down here. Let's get our speed brakes out, because really that should be out when we're doing this. And we'll hit the regular brakes, wheel brakes. So there we go, folks. The F-14 Tomcat. Oh, how long I have waited for someone to bring this to Microsoft Flight Simulator. And I will repeat, yes, I know that I've got it for DCS World. And yes, I know it is a completely different ball game for DCS World as opposed to Microsoft Flight Simulator. But let's face it, as much as I enjoy bringing you videos in DCS World, number one, I do like Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I do want to continue the Tomcattery across the USA tour. And number two, well, in DCS, I can't fly to Midway. That's all I've got to say about that. As far as I'm concerned, for all those who have been saying negative things regarding fighter jets in Microsoft Flight Simulator, let me remind you, this is a flight simulator. All aircraft types are valid in a flight simulator, just like how FSX had this kind of stuff, P3D, X-plane, all aircraft types are valid. It's not all about the tube liners. It's not all about the GA. It's not even all about the helicopters. Sometimes you need warbirds, sometimes you need fast jets or gliders or just unusual experimental home built aircraft. Whatever the case may be, there is a place for it in a flight sim such as this. So do not bring down the people who enjoy flying stuff like this just because it's Microsoft Flight Simulator. It works, it is adequate, it does the job. There is no place for elitism in this sim. And I'm serious about that. You notice I'm using my finger wagging voice right now. But I am serious about that. So let people do what people would like to do. Some people enjoy doing airliner flights. People like myself enjoy doing shenanigans in places in the world that I can't get to in DCS. But make no bones about it, folks. I do have some DCS videos coming up. I know I'm long overdue. So those of you who have been waiting for DCS videos, you will be happy to know I'm not about to give this bird the priority over DCS. As far as DC designs goes, I'm going to give you 2 thumbs up, but there is a caveat with that. I have obviously pointed out stuff that I think could be fixed or should be fixed. I realize that in your making this aircraft, you specifically stated that you did not want to make something study level, but there are some things that are not quote unquote study level, but do need your attention. For example, the RPM, TIT, and FF. All of those are wrong. Plain and simple. There's no other easy way to say it. They're wrong. That needs to be fixed. And there's other things that I think would be quality of life improvements that anyone who flies a Tomcat would greatly appreciate if you added to this bird. So please, don't take it as harsh criticism. I absolutely love this aircraft. I am biased, very highly biased. I have known about the Tomcat since I was a kid. This aircraft was born literally 1 month after me. And by born, I mean its maiden flight was in 1970, December of 1970. I was born November 1970. I've been in love with this bird since I first knew about it. And even more so when I finally got to see one in person. I was in my teens and I got to see a Puking Dogs Tomcat with a livery very similar to this one. And that was what did it for me. I've been in love with this bird ever since. So kudos to you, DC Designs, for bringing this bird to life. Please continue working on it. Please give us more updates. And as more and more features become available in Microsoft Flight Simulator, please feel free to code them in. Anything that you can do to make this thing even better, I will be more than happy to make another video on just to show people. Because after all, it is the Tomcat, and I am known as the Tomcat guy, among other Tomcat guys. All right, so we are done, folks. DUN, done. So we'll unlock that, we'll open that, put our ramp down, we get our lights off, so nav lights off, and we'll get all of this stuff off. There we go, there we go, there we go. And we'll go ahead and get our avionics off while we're at it. We'll turn these switches off, even though according to the caution and warning panels, they are already off, which is of course incorrect. Flaps are up, gears down, DLC is up. We do need to slick the wings back before we call this done, so we'll open up our wing sweep cover and pull that all the way back. And we'll watch as it goes to the oversweep position. By the way, DC Designs, one final bit of feedback. When it reaches 68, there should be something that says oversweep just under where it says man for manual. All right, but that's about all I can nitpick on this bird for now. So we'll go ahead and close this out if I can reach it. There we go. And we will turn our engines off. So that'll do it, folks. that will do it. That is my very, very in depth preview of the F-14 Bravo model Tomcat. In future videos, I'll also show the Alpha model, but because the Bravo is my favorite, is why I chose to make this first video with that. And of course, it's the one that has my absolute favorite squadron, the Puking Dogs, as a livery. So it just makes sense for me to show it to you. So I sincerely hope that you have enjoyed what you have seen today. DC Designs, I still love you guys, but like I said, you got some work that you need to do. As for you, the viewing audience, if you are interested in fighter jets and let's say you're a Top Gun fan or a Final Countdown fan or even a Speed and Angels fan, I would definitely recommend that you pick this one up. But just bear in mind, it is in its beginning stages. This is only the release version. There is still much more that can be done with this bird. And that'll do it for me, folks. Thanks as always for watching. This has been BelGeode, and hopefully when next you see me, I will be flying around with Allie in this bird. But until such time, I hope that you have enjoyed this, and if you have enjoyed this, please feel free to give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Asobo, fix your textures. Sheesh. Alrighty, folks. I will talk to you later. Have a great evening. Ciao.